Hi everybody, I'm going to try to explain this hazard analysis portion of your HACCP plan. You have this worksheet here. What I recommend is that one team member prints it off and you write in your answers, because this being a PDF, you cannot type directly on it, and I'm sorry for that. But let's just kind of go through the first steps. It says fill out the hazard analysis form. Utilize the information from the flow diagram project. So your flow diagram that you already completed is going to help you with this next step. Okay, so keep that in mind. It says first, list all biological, chemical, and physical hazards associated with each process step that is listed on your flow diagram. So you're going to go back to your flow diagram, and at each of those steps, you'll list the step here in the first column. It says process step. So you'll list the first thing that happens, and then you're going to identify what are the biological hazards at that step, what are the chemical hazards that could happen there, and what are the physical hazards that could potentially happen there. Okay, number 2, it says then to determine the hazard if it is significant. So this next column, does it need to be addressed? Yes, it's a simple yes or no. Step 3, document why a hazard was determined to be significant or insignificant. So if you answered yes, in here you're going to tell me why is that important, or if you answered no, tell me why it's not important. Then lastly, number 4, identify preventative measures for each of the significant hazards. So only the ones that you answered yes to, do you need to then tell me what are you going to do to try and eliminate or reduce those hazards. We're going to go ahead and look at the sample problem that we've had before. So remember, the sample that I went over with you before was in ground beef. And so the first part was to receive beef and pork trim. So that is the first step in our flow diagram. So when we go to our sample hazard plan, our first process step is to receive the wholesale cuts and trim. We look at potential hazards. For biological, we have pathogen growth. For chemical, there could be antibiotic residue on the meat. And for physical, foreign objects found within the carcass. Okay, then we determine, is it something that we need to look at? Is there a potential hazard? For pathogen growth, yes, we need to make sure there's no pathogens. Antibiotic residues, no. And foreign objects, no. The justification as to why or why not. Okay, if it has a pathogen, we need to make sure that it's not there. So raw meat is known to be a source of pathogens like E. coli and salmonella. I've said that in class a few times already. The USDA monitors the use of antibiotics in livestock facilities. So that's not something that we as the food handlers need to be looking for. And then foreign objects, if it's a carcass, it's not going through like a whole packaging processing facility. So there's little exposure to where any foreign objects would come into contact with the meat at this point. So the only control that we need to really look at is this biological hazard for this particular step. We need to maintain proper temperatures. So if it's raw meat, we obviously want to keep it in cooler temperatures, or at least refrigeration, and to test the products if and when necessary. Okay, so as we go down the list, we find other steps that come directly from our flow diagram. So use your flow diagram to determine the steps, and then break down biological, chemical, physical hazards that could happen at each location. If there's any questions, please email me, and I will do my best to answer those.